They told my mother to leave. They told her she didn't belong there before they knew a single thing about her. A uniformed officer looked at a 71-year-old black woman in a beige cardigan and sensible shoes and decided, in the space of 3 seconds, that she was a problem to be removed. He decided she was lost. He decided she was confused. He decided she was nobody. He was about to find out exactly who he had just tried to erase. This is the story of the morning Officer Brian Tate tried to remove my mother from the lobby of Oak Ridge City Hall, and what happened when the mayor of that city walked out those elevator doors. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. My mother does not look like power. That has always been intentional. Her name is Claudette Okafor, and she is 71 years old. And on the morning of Tuesday, October the 14th, she wore what she always wears when she wants to move through the world unbothered. A beige cardigan over a cream blouse, dark slacks, low-heeled shoes she has owned for 11 years because she likes the arch support, a small gold cross at her throat, a beige handbag, the kind with the short handles that sits in the crook of your elbow, the kind every grandmother carries. She had done her hair that morning, a neat, low bun, a little pearl earrings. I had offered to go with her. She told me I was being dramatic and that she could walk into a building by herself at 71 years old without a chaperone. I told her to call me if she needed anything. She said she would. She was already putting on her second shoe. My mother does not look like a woman who spent 27 years on the federal bench. She does not look like the first black woman to serve as United States Attorney for the Southern District of this state. She does not look like a woman whose name appears in 73 published decisions that law students still study in constitutional courses. She looks like someone's grandmother. She was about to discover that someone had decided grandmothers don't belong at City Hall on a Tuesday morning. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The lobby of Oak Ridge City Hall is a wide, marble-floored rotunda with a vaulted ceiling and a brass chandelier that nobody has dusted since the current administration took office. There are 2 security stations near the entrance, glass and deep steel desks with monitor screens and a badge scanner, and a set of elevators at the far end. The walls are hung with photographs of former mayors, city council resolutions framed in dark wood, and a large digital display board that rotates through city announcements. On this particular Tuesday, the display board cycled through one announcement over and over. It read, "Today Judicial Tribute Ceremony, 2nd floor Grand Chamber, 10 a.m. My mother walked in at 9:40. She was 20 minutes early. She is always 20 minutes early. She says that if you arrive on time, you are already late." The lobby was not busy. A young woman at the information desk was sorting mail. 2 men in hard hats with rolled-up blueprints were waiting near the elevator bank. A city employee in a lanyard was walking fast toward a side hallway with a coffee cup in each hand. My mother walked to the visitor sign-in desk, the one nearest the main doors. It was unmanned. A clipboard sat on the surface with a pen attached to a string. She picked up the pen. That is when Officer Brian Tate noticed her. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Brian Tate was 34 years old and employed by Meridian Contracted Security Services, the firm the city of Oak Ridge used to staff its building entrances. He wore a dark navy uniform with a shoulder patch that read Oak Ridge City Hall Security and a utility belt with a radio, a taser, and a canister of pepper spray. He carried no firearm. He carried, however, a very specific and very personal theory about who looked like they belonged in a government building. He had been standing near the main entrance, arms crossed, watching the lobby with the expression of a man who takes minor authority extremely seriously. He saw my mother walk in. He watched her go to the sign-in desk. He watched her pick up the pen, and then he crossed the floor. He moved with the energy of someone who had been waiting for an excuse to move. His boots made a sharp, deliberate sound against the marble. He stopped 6 feet from her, close enough to be noticed, far enough to claim he was merely positioned near the desk. "Ma'am," he said. His voice was loud for the space. "Can I help you with something?" My mother looked up. She smiled at him. It was a real smile, not a strained one. She had spent 27 years on the federal bench. She had smiled at people who had called her far worse than nothing. "Good morning," she said. "I'm here for the ceremony." Tate glanced at the clipboard. "What ceremony is that?" She gestured toward the display board rotating on the far wall. "The Judicial Tribute, 10 o'clock, 2nd floor." Tate looked at the board, looked back at her. His expression did not change, but something behind his eyes shifted. "Is your name on the list?" he asked. "I believe so," my mother said pleasantly. "Let me check," Tate said. He stepped around her to the desk, opened a thin binder he pulled from the drawer. He ran his finger down a page. His finger stopped somewhere in the middle. He looked up at it. What's the last name? Okafor. My mother said. Tate ran his finger again, slower, turned the page. I don't see it, he said. My mother set the pen down gently. She tilted her head in the way she does when she is being patient and also watching you very carefully. She said, you may want to check the cover of the binder, dear. Tate looked at the cover. It read, Staff and Venue Personnel. He had grabbed the wrong list. He set the binder down. He did not apologize. He did not reach for the correct list, which was a separate folder sitting in a clear plastic sleeve to the right. He looked at my mother with the expression of a man who has decided that his original conclusion is correct and that the evidence is merely being inconvenient. What is your business here today? He asked again. I told you, she said. I'm here for the tribute ceremony. Are you a guest? I am, she said. There was a long pause. The kind that is not about waiting for information. The kind that is about establishing something. The ceremony is by invitation only, Tate said. It's a formal event for city officials and guests of the honoree. I'm going to need to verify you have an invitation before I can let you proceed to the elevator bank. My mother looked at him for one full second. Of course, she said. She reached into her beige handbag and began to look for the letter. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That letter existed. I know because I watched her put it in the bag myself. It was a single-page letter on official City of Oak Ridge stationery, signed by Mayor Denise Carver personally, not by a staffer, not by the events coordinator, but by the mayor herself. It read, in formal but warm language, that the City of Oak Ridge was profoundly honored to host the judicial tribute and renaming ceremony, in recognition of the lifetime of service of the Honorable Claudette Okafor, retired, and that the mayor looked forward to welcoming her personally to the event, being held in her honor, The event was named for her. The ceremony was about her. They were renaming the Oak Ridge Federal Courthouse. They were naming it after my mother. But Officer Brian Tate did not know any of this. And my mother, reaching carefully through her handbag, was taking a moment longer to find the letter than she expected. Her hands, which have arthritis in the joints of both index fingers, were moving slowly through the inside pocket. Tate watched her, and then he stopped waiting. I'm going to have to ask you to step back outside while we verify your invitation, he said. His voice had not shifted. There was something in it now, a resolution. He had decided. My mother looked up from the bag. I'm sorry, she said. Step outside, please. Ma'am, if you have an invitation, you can present it at the door and I'll let you back in once it's verified. I am verifying it right now, she said evenly. It's in my bag. Tate stepped to her left, positioning, cutting off the natural path toward the elevators. This is standard procedure for invited guests, he said. If you are on the list, this won't take more than a few minutes. I am on the list, she said. I told you my name. There are a lot of names on that list, he said. And mine is at the top, she replied. It was a fact, not a boast. She said it in the same voice she would use to tell him the building was made of marble. Tate's jaw tightened. Ma'am, I need you to cooperate. He reached for her elbow, not grabbing, but gesturing, nudging the air near her arm, the way you steer a person who you have decided does not have the standing to refuse you. My mother did not move. She looked at his hand. She looked at his face. Young man, she said, her voice dropping half an octave, I suggest you withdraw that hand before you create a situation you cannot undo. It was the quietest threat in the history of the Oak Ridge City Hall lobby. Tate did not understand it as a threat. He understood it as defiance. He understood it as confirmation. I need you to exit the building, he said. If you have an invitation, you may re-enter through the main desk once the morning supervisor arrives. That will be approximately 30 minutes. The ceremony starts in 18 minutes, my mother said. I understand that. We'll get this sorted out. He stepped fully to her left now, blocking. The two men with blueprints near the elevator bank were watching. The young woman at the information desk was watching. She had put down the mail. My mother did not look at them. She looked at Brian Tate, and then she did something. She unzipped the inner pocket of her handbag, the one with the small silver zipper she uses for important documents, and she pulled out the folded letter. She held it out toward him. She said nothing. She simply held it there, extended. Tate looked at it. He did not reach for it. What is that? He asked. My invitation, she said. A pause. I'll have to take that to verify it, he said. You can read it right here, she said. I'm not handing my documents to someone who hasn't told me his supervisor's name. The lobby was quiet enough now that the sound of the building's HVAC system was audible, a faint, constant hum. Tate's hand moved to his radio. He clicked it. "I need a second officer to the main lobby," he said into the radio, visitor refusing to comply. That crackle, that click, that 5-second transmission, that was the moment Brian Tate sealed his own fate. Because upstairs, in the corridor outside the second-floor grand chamber, the mayor's assistant was standing with a clipboard going over the final run of show. When the radio traffic came through the building's security channel, which fed into the lobby monitor at the event coordination desk 20 feet from where she was standing, she heard it. A visitor refusing to comply in the main lobby. She looked at the time. 9:43. She looked at her clipboard. The only VIP guest who had not yet checked in was the honoree herself. She turned and walked very quickly toward the mayor's prep room. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Inside the main lobby, a second security officer, a woman named Torres, had come around from the side entrance. She was younger than Tate. She stood back slightly, assessing. The situation in front of her was this. An elderly black woman in a beige cardigan was standing at the visitor desk, handbag over her arm, a folded letter in her outstretched hand. She was completely still. She was not shouting, she was not crying, she was not moved. She was waiting, and Brian Tate was standing between her and the elevator bank, his radio still in his hand, his posture set, his jaw forward. Torres looked at the letter in the woman's hand. She looked at Tate. "What's the situation?" Torres asked quietly. "Visitor without verified invitation for a restricted event," Tate said, refusing to exit for verification. "I have my invitation," my mother said again, pleasantly. Directly to Torres, she extended the letter once more. Torres reached out and took it. She unfolded it. She read the first 3 lines. Something changed in Torres's face. She read 3 more lines. She looked up at my mother. She looked at the letter. She looked at my mother again. "Officer Tate," she said. Her voice had gone careful and flat. "Yeah," he said. "When did the honoree check in?" Tate frowned. "What?" Torres turned the letter so he could see it. "For the ceremony, the honoree, the person the ceremony is for. Did she check in?" Tate looked at the letter. He read the first paragraph. His color changed. There was a silence in which the HVAC hum was very, very loud. "Ma'am," Torres said, turning to my mother, "I sincerely apologize for the delay. I'll escort you to the elevator right now." Tate said nothing. His hand was still on his radio. He was very still in the way that a man is still when he has just realized what he has done but has not yet decided whether he will admit it. My mother did not look at him. She straightened the strap of her handbag. She looked at Torres. "Thank you," she said. "I'd like to see the mayor." "I believe the mayor is on her way down," Torres said. And she was right. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The elevator at the far end of the lobby opened with a soft chime at 9:47. Mayor Denise Carver did not wait for the doors to fully part before she stepped out. She was 62 years old. She wore a tailored navy suit and small American flag pin. Her assistant was behind her, and behind the assistant was a city communications officer with a phone already raised. The mayor crossed the lobby in 22 steps. She walked past Torres. She walked past Officer Tate. She stopped in front of my mother, and she extended both hands, not one, and took my mother's in hers. "Claudette," the mayor said. Her voice was warm and mortified in equal measure. "I am so sorry. I am so deeply sorry." My mother said, "Denise, it's all right." "It is not all right," the mayor said. She did not let go of my mother's hands. She turned, still holding them, so that they were both facing the lobby. Brian Tate was standing 8 feet away. He was watching. The communications officer had lowered the phone but had not turned off the camera. The mayor looked at Tate with the expression of a woman who has been in public service for 30 years and has learned exactly how to make a person understand something without raising her voice. She said, "Officer Tate." He said, "Yes, Mayor." She said, "Do you know who this woman is?" He said, "She said she was here for the ceremony." The mayor looked at the elevator. She looked at the digital display board rotating on the wall. "Judicial Tribute Ceremony, 2nd floor, in honor of the Honorable Claudette Okafor, retired." She looked back at him. "This is Judge Okafor," the mayor said. "We are renaming the federal courthouse after her this morning. She is the reason 200 people are sitting in chairs on my 2nd floor right now. She is the person every single invited guest has traveled here to honor." The lobby was very quiet. "Her name is on every piece of signage in this building today," the mayor continued. "Her photograph is on a plaque being unveiled in approximately 11 minutes. And you asked her to leave?" Tate opened his mouth. The mayor did not let him speak, not because she interrupted him, because the weight of the moment did not leave space for him. She turned back to my mother. "Come upstairs with me," she said. "Let me walk you in personally." My mother patted the mayor's hand once. She smiled. She said that would be lovely, Denise. They walked together to the elevator. Officer Torres held the door. The lobby watched them go. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I know what my mother was thinking in that elevator because I know my mother. She was not triumphant. She does not do triumph. She was not angry. Not in the hot way people imagine anger. She was something older and quieter than anger. She was tired and she was steady. She had been asked to prove herself before. She had been asked to prove herself for 50 years. She had walked into courtrooms where bailiffs questioned her. She had been addressed as counselor by judges who assumed she was a defense attorney before they read her title. She had arrived at Bar Association galas and been handed a coat check ticket and pointed toward the cloakroom. She had learned, across 5 decades, that there are 2 ways to respond to the person who refuses to see you. You can fight for them to see you, which is exhausting and gives them enormous power over your peace. Or you can simply remain exactly who you are until the truth lands on its own, which it always does, and let the weight of it fall entirely on them. She had chosen, a long time ago, to be the second kind of person. It is the hardest kind to be. It is also the most powerful. The elevator opened onto the 2nd floor. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The Grand Chamber of Oak Ridge City Hall holds 220 seats. On the morning of October the 14th, it held 211 people, with 9 seats still empty near the aisle reserved for the honoree's family. Our seats. I was sitting in mine when the doors opened. I saw the mayor walk in first. Then I saw my mother. She was walking the way she always walks, straight, unhurried, the handbag in the crook of her elbow, the small gold cross, the pearl ear. The room did not stand immediately because nobody had announced her yet, but the people nearest the aisle saw her, and the people behind them looked, and within 4 seconds of her entering the room, 211 people were on their feet. She walked down the aisle to the applause of a room full of people who had come from across 3 states to honor her. She found her seat next to mine. She sat down. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "How was the lobby?" I asked her. She said, a little slow. She was smiling. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The ceremony lasted 87 minutes. There were 5 speakers before the mayor, including 2 federal judges, a U.S. senator, and the current U.S. attorney for the Southern District, a woman my mother had mentored when she was a 3rd-year law student. When the senator reached the podium, he said, "There is no institution of justice in this state that does not have her fingerprints on it." And the room applauded for a long time. The mayor spoke last, before the unveiling. She talked about the 27 years my mother had spent on the bench. She talked about the landmark rulings. She talked about the civil rights decisions, the criminal justice reform, the constitutional opinions that had been cited by the Supreme Court on 3 occasions. She talked about the 240 law clerks my mother had mentored in her career, and she asked all of them who were in the room that day to please stand. 61 people stood. The mayor looked out at them for a moment. Then she said, "I also want to say something about the morning." The room went quiet. She said, "This morning, one of our contracted security personnel asked Judge Okafor to leave this building. He asked her to leave before she could present her invitation. He blocked her path to the elevator. He called for backup." A murmur moved through the room. "I want to say directly," the mayor said, "that this is unacceptable. Not because of who Judge Okafor is, but because of who any person is. Every individual who walks through the doors of this building is owed basic dignity and the presumption that they belong here until there is reason to believe otherwise, not the reverse. Never the reverse." She paused. "Judge Okafor did not complain," the mayor said. "She did not raise her voice. She did not demand to be recognized. She simply stood there in the lobby of her own ceremony and waited for the truth to do what truth always does. She looked directly at my mother. We could stand to learn from that," she said. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Downstairs, in the main lobby, Officer Brian Tate had not moved from the visitor desk. He was standing near the sign-in clipboard. His second officer, Torres, had gone back to her post. The lobby had quieted. The hard-hat men with blueprints were gone. He was standing alone with what he had done. His supervisor, a woman named Patterson from Meridian Contracted Security, had been paged within 4 minutes of the mayor's arrival in the lobby. Patterson had reviewed the lobby security footage. From the desk monitor, she had reviewed it twice. She had not said anything to Tate yet. She was on the phone with the Meridian Regional Director. Tate heard the ceremony broadcast through a small speaker feed near the information desk. A monitor in the lobby rotunda was showing the live feed from the grand chamber upstairs. He had not been able to turn it off. He heard the mayor say his name. He stood very still. He heard the applause for the 61 clerks. He stood still for a very long time. At 11:22, Patterson came back. She put her phone in her pocket. She looked at him and said, "Brian, I'm going to need your badge and your radio." He looked at her. "Effective immediately," she said. "Pending investigation. You'll hear from HR by Friday." He unclipped his radio and placed it on the desk. He unpinned his badge. He set it next to the radio. He thought about explaining. He thought about the legal standard for reasonable suspicion, the ambiguity of the guest list, the procedures manual that said unverified guests should be held at the desk. He thought about all the procedural scaffolding he had been trained to use as a defense. He left it all unsaid. He picked up his jacket from the chair near the desk. He walked out the main doors of Oak Ridge City Hall into the October light. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The investigation by Meridian Contracted Security was completed in 6 business days. The security footage from the lobby camera showed the full sequence of events from 9:40 to 9:47. It showed my mother approaching the desk. It showed Tate crossing the floor. It showed, clearly, the extended letter and his refusal to look at it. It showed Torres reading the letter and the change in her posture within 12 seconds of reading it. The investigation also reviewed Tate's record. In 22 months with Meridian, he had filed 9 incident reports for visitor-related disturbances. The mayor, his communications office, cross-referenced them. 7 of the 9 involved visitors who were Black or Latino. 0 of the 9 resulted in formal criminal complaints or trespassing charges. They were all incidents where he had been wrong. He had been wrong 9 times in 22 months, and the pattern had been invisible until the 10th time made it impossible to ignore. The regional director of Meridian Contracted Security issued a statement. It acknowledged the incident. It announced the termination of Tate's contract. It committed to implicit bias training for all city contract security personnel. It said the company was sorry. Tate did not issue a statement. He retained an attorney and filed a wrongful termination claim, arguing that he had followed protocol and that termination for a good-faith security stop was unjust. The claim was reviewed. It was denied. The review board found that the footage demonstrated not a good-faith stop, but a pattern of selective enforcement with no articulable justification. The claim was denied on a Tuesday. The same week, my mother received the framed plaque from the renaming ceremony, which arrived by courier to her house in a wide, flat box. She unwrapped it on the kitchen table. It was a bronze plate, maybe 14 inches wide, with an embossed rendering of the courthouse facade. It read, Oak Ridge Federal Courthouse, dedicated in honor of the Honorable Claudette Okafor, in recognition of 27 years of service to justice, equity, and the rule of law. She ran her finger across her name. She said, "That looks nice." Then she set it against the wall near the window, where the afternoon light hit it. She put the kettle on. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I have thought many times since that morning about what would have happened if Torres had not come, if Patterson had not been watching, if the mayor's assistant had not heard the radio transmission, if there had been no ceremony, no 211 people in chairs, no 61 clerks standing, no live feed on the lobby monitor. What would have happened if my mother had simply been a 71-year-old black woman in a beige cardigan, trying to get into a building, with no letter in her bag that anyone was willing to read? She has thought about this too. I know because she told me. She said, "That is the point, baby. That is entirely the point." She said, "The question is never whether I belong there. I always belong where I choose to go. The question is what system is in place for the people who look like me but don't have the letter, who is standing up for them." She had that clerk who knew her on the second floor, the mayor who came down. The letter she almost couldn't find. And she said, most of the people who look like me and walk into buildings and get asked to leave, they don't have a mayor coming down in the elevator. What do we do about that? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. She did not let it rest there. 6 weeks after the ceremony, my mother addressed the Oak Ridge City Council at their public meeting. She wore the same beige cardigan. She spoke for 11 minutes without notes. She talked about the lobby. She talked about what it means to require a person to prove their belonging before they are permitted to exist in a public space. She talked about the documented pattern in Tate's incident reports. She talked about what she called the presumption of out of place, the instinct, trained into people without their knowing it, that certain bodies in certain spaces are automatically suspect. She said, I was able to stand in that lobby and wait because I have spent 50 years learning to be still in the face of people who want to move me. But stillness is not a strategy that should be required. And most people cannot wait that long, do not have a letter in their bag, do not have a mayor's phone number. What is this city doing for them? The council voted that night to commission an independent audit of all contracted security firms working in city buildings. The audit was completed 4 months later. It recommended mandatory documented justification for all visitor detentions, civilian review of incident report patterns, and mandatory de-escalation and implicit bias training renewed annually. The city adopted all three recommendations. My mother came home that night and told me what happened. I asked her how she felt. She said, tired and good. She said, that's usually what justice feels like. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The morning after the council vote, she called me. It was early, not quite 7. I asked her if everything was okay. She said, more than okay. I wanted to tell you something. I said, what? She said, when I was standing in that lobby, and that man was telling me to leave, I thought about your grandmother. She worked as a domestic for 12 years in a house on the north side of this city. She was not permitted to use the front door. She came in through the service entrance for 12 years. I said, I know, Mama. She said, that building, the courthouse they named after me, I walked up those front steps to file my first brief in 1981. I was 29. I was the only black woman in the courthouse that day. I walked up those front steps on purpose, and I said, I know. She said, that's the letter they should have been looking for in my bag. Not the one the mayor wrote, the one my whole life wrote. She told me she loved me. She hung up. I sat with that for a long time. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Officer Brian Tate's wrongful termination claim was denied on a Tuesday. He did not refile. The morning supervisor he had called for was never paged. The second officer, Torres, submitted a full written account of what she observed that morning. It was clear, precise, and accurate. Torres was later promoted to lead officer for the City Hall contract. The ceremony footage, particularly the mayor's remarks from the podium, was posted on the city's official social media. It received over 400,000 views in the first week. The comments section was long, and for once, on the internet, overwhelmingly kind. The renaming of the courthouse was covered by the State Bar Journal, the National Civil Rights Law Review, and a long piece in the city's newspaper, which had not run a front-page story about the courts in 11 years. The headline read, A Lifetime of Justice, now set in bronze. Below it, a photograph. My mother, in the beige cardigan, standing on the front steps of the courthouse that bears her name. She is not smiling for the camera. She is looking up at the building. Her hands are folded at her waist. She looks exactly like what she is. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. She is home now. Most days, she gardens in the mornings and reads in the afternoons and has lunch every Thursday with 2 women she has been friends with since 1974. She keeps the plaque near the window in the kitchen. She says it catches the light nicely. She told me last week that she got a letter, a real one, handwritten, from a young black woman in her 3rd year of law school who had watched the ceremony footage. The young woman wrote that she had been thinking about dropping out, that she was tired of being the only one in every room, that she did not know if the profession would have space for her. She wrote that watching the footage of my mother walking into that ceremony, not angry, not crushed, just walking in, had made her reconsider. My mother wrote her back 6 pages, handwritten. She told her to stay. She told her the rooms are not always ready for you when you arrive. She told her to arrive anyway. That is what 71 years of walking through front doors looks like. That is what they tried to remove from City Hall on a Tuesday morning. They did not succeed. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something true about dignity and endurance and what it means to stand your ground without raising your voice, then please like this video. It helps more people find stories like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear that patience is not the same as surrender, and that the truth always lands eventually, no matter who is trying to block the door. Subscribe to this channel and ring the bell so you never miss a story about the people who kept walking even when someone told them to stop, and leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever been made to feel like you didn't belong somewhere you had every right to be? I'd like to know. Until next time, stay dignified, stay